Hi, welcome everyone. This is AGPayrol's roundtable webinar on the upcoming Joint and Several Liability legislation that's coming out in April. So, we welcome our expert panel here. We've managed to pull together 5 of the industry's top experts in legal, compliance, invoice financing, networking. So we've got everything on here. So hopefully we can answer all your questions. And we've been out and about speaking to all our agency partners, and these are the relevant questions that they've been asking us. So we've got the experts here to help us out. So just to introduce myself, my name's Chris Fahey. I'm the owner of AGPayroll. We're a UK payroll company. We provide umbrella, CIS and bureau services. We are SafeRec accredited through our friend here, Seb. I've also recently got our FCS accreditation, Julian representing FCSA today as well. So one of the only payroll companies in the UK that has the 2 big accreditations. We've also won the Contracting Awards Umbrella Company of the Year last year, and I never really go far without having the trophy next to you. So there we go. There's one for a screenshot. So that's enough of the sales pitch, and let's move on with the matter in hand. So today's event is to help our agencies or help agencies out there understand where you're exposed and what to do before this legislation comes in April, which I believe is one of the biggest legislation changes in my career. I've been in the industry for 20 years, and this one is huge. So I think everyone on here will know what is coming and how it affects the agency. And it's more about getting into the detail of the legislation and the nitty-gritty of it. So ultimately, the legislation, as it sits just now, if an agency is using an umbrella company, then the umbrella company is on the hook for any unpaid tax liability. Come April, that liability will change to the umbrella company and the recruitment agency. Or if the agency is paying the contractors or temps, PAYE, then the liability will then sit with the agency and also the end client. So there's always going to be 2 parties involved in the tax liability moving forward, which is a huge shift in responsibility. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our panel, who all like to talk, so they'll be sitting there ready to jump in. So I'd like you guys, you're all big boys, you can introduce yourself. I'll start with you, Steve. Do you want to give a brief introduction of who you are? And also at the end of it, if you could just give us 1 sentence on what you're most worried about with JSL coming in April.
Yeah, sure. I'm Steve from Raise. We support recruitment agencies with funding and back office admin support alongside compliance and risk mitigation. Before that, I started in recruitment with one of the big boys, Reed, and then worked as running an umbrella company for 10 years. So, yeah, always in recruitment, seen plenty of changes. As far as the biggest fear, I suppose, is what it puts onto the agencies. Not necessarily a personal fear, because we do support our agencies, but from experience, I know a number of the recruiters won't have the expertise or the time to do due diligence correctly. So, a little bit of a concern for that, but confident that with the right support, we can get the industry moving the right way. Certainly needed, from being in the umbrella industry, it's long overdue. So, looking forward to it.
Good, mate. Excellent. I think that was longer than 1 sentence, but we'll let you off.
Okay.
Simon.
Tried my best.
Is it my turn?
Yes, there you go.
Simon Bliss, Chairman at the Team Recruitment Network. We support small to medium recruitment businesses in the UK, some 500 plus. I would say I'm concerned with the feedback from my members is Joint and Several fixing the umbrella problem? So that's a question there, or just moving the problem to the smallest businesses in the supply chain. My members are nervous about it, and some are quite cautious about what to do next and how to support that supply chain.
Perfect. Okay, thank you. It's great to have you here, Simon. Julian, you're next.
Yeah, Julian Ball. I've been around in the industry since about 2004. working with an umbrella company, and I'm on the board of FCSA as an independent director at the moment. One thing I'm interested in, and I think we'll touch on it today, is how practically HMRC are going to enforce this legislation, because we're still a bit in the dark as to that. So it's probably good to have a talk about what we think is going to happen.
Excellent. Good stuff. Paul, you're next.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Afternoon, everybody. I'm Paul Chamberlain. I head up the employment team and the people solutions team at JMW. I've been working in this sector for probably 30 years or so, and we've got associations with all of the main trade bodies, including Simon's team network. My concern as an employment lawyer is the topic that seems to have gone under the radar in relation to this, which is the application of the Transfer Undertakings Regulations, or TUPE, in circumstances where agencies might bring the payroll function back in, or where there might be a change of umbrella provider as a result of people shortening their supplier lists.
Excellent. Good stuff. And last but not least, Seb.
Hi everyone, my name is Sebastian Soka. I'm the CEO of Sefrec. So on one side, we have a certification for umbrella company. And on the other side, we have a SaaS platform for a recruitment agency where they can effectively do a lot of compliance tasks and have financial information on their umbrella company. What I'm the most worried about is probably education. I think that there is like a lot of recruitment agency where they work in supply chain where there is an MSP, and I think that the MSP is like enforcing some type of control and some type of direction. But I think there is a lot of industries like education, for example, where they work with school, where sometimes they rely on the umbrella company to let them know about joint and several liability, but kind of like up to them to go and grab the information. And as Simon know, I know we talked about it many times, but there is about 40,000 recruitment agencies in the country, and there is only like really 3,000 or 4,000 that are represented by teams, the REC or APSCOs that kind of like educate recruitment agencies. Yeah. So that's probably the biggest worry is I think that there is a lot of recruitment agencies, small ones that are still in the dark and don't know that from the 6th of April, they're going to have a lot of liability. And that was definitely not one sentence. So I'm sorry, Chris.
That's quite short for you, Seb, to be fair. So that's okay. I'll let you know.
Okay, right.
So I should have said at the start, we've got 10 questions here to get through. We've got 40 minutes to do that. At the end, we're going to invite some questions. So as we go along, there's a chat box in here. If you've got any questions, the last 10, 15 minutes, we'll open that up to answer them. If we don't get through them all, there'll be a white paper produced on the back of this, and we'll answer all your questions there. So we'll jump right into the first question, and I'm going to address this one to Julian and Paul. So AGPayroll ran a poll last week on LinkedIn for 100 agency owners, and we were shocked to find out that 80% of recruitment agency owners don't even know anything about this legislation. They don't know it's happening. So what are the consequences for agencies not being prepared for this game-changing legislation? Start with you, Julian.
Well, maybe nothing initially, because if you're using umbrellas that are paying the right amount of tax, then nothing may happen. Over time, I think probably the first thing you'll hear is maybe from your auditors asking how you're protecting yourself against potential liabilities. So we'll see what happens with that. Obviously, down the line, there are potential liabilities if your umbrellas don't pay the right amount of tax, and that's obviously a joint and several liability that you as an agency may have. And I guess the other thing to think about is if you're ever going to sell your business, you might have to explain to a buyer why you haven't got the right systems, processes in place to protect your business against these potential liabilities. So there's quite a lot to think about, but I guess at first, probably nothing's going to happen to you because it'll take HMRC a while to catch up anyway. But the liability could be building if you've got your contractors in the wrong place.
Good stuff. Appreciate that. Paul, anything to add in there?
Yeah, I think speaking to agencies that do know a little bit about this, they haven't quite cottoned on to the fact that this will be strict liability. So there's a lot of talk yesterday, for example, at an event I was at where people were saying, well, if we get FCSA accredited umbrellas on side, and we do our due diligence, then that will protect us. And the short answer is no, it won't. The revenue won't be remotely interested in what due diligence you did. You'll just be on the hook for the payment. So I think there's a misconception here that due diligence is the answer. It's part of the risk mitigation, but it can't be a complete answer to the issue.
Okay. I think that's where, Julian, will come in with that point that you said at the start, where you said, are we confident HMRC are going to enforce these changes? So what's your thoughts on that?
Well, they will, but it often takes them time. We've seen all the bits of legislation over the years that they've brought in, MSC and things like that in this industry. It takes them a while to get to do things. I think with this legislation, it's a little bit easier for them because it's joint and several liability. They can go straight at the agencies if they really wanted to from day one. And we're yet to see, and it'll take a while before we understand what happens. But if they do identify there's an underpaid liability, there's no doubt that they'll use this legislation because the way it's phrased, it's very easy for them just to say to an agency, look, these umbrellas have underpaid. You're on the hook. Give us the money. And then what is the process there for establishing the debt? How do they establish the debt? Do they go after the umbrella first? Probably. Will they serve a notice? Yes. And then it's all about how an agency goes about defending itself because it will have the information. So it's a very complex system when they actually come to enforcing it. And we'll find out when they issue the guidance notes, hopefully shortly, how they intend to do that. But I think particularly if they found the sort of the mini umbrellas or things that HMRC hate, and they find, I think they'll go there first, and they're easy pickings. And then if they don't get it from those kind of places, they'll go straight for the agencies and say, well, you knew it was happening anyway. There's no need for them to know, but they'll say you knew and we're coming for you.
Yeah, definitely. Paul, anything to add in there, HMRC?
No, I agree with that. I mean, the one thing that I heard yesterday at an event I was at was that the revenue have already tied their colours to a mast, and they're saying we've got the agencies in our system.
Yeah.
So it might be that they don't even bother with the umbrellas. If there's
they'll have to, Paul. They'll have to because they'll have to establish. I mean, obviously, if you think about what happens, you get RTI for 4 weeks, and then at the end of that, the umbrella pays some tax to you, and then HMRC joins it up, and they will surely go for the umbrella first and say you've underpaid this and give them a chance to make good before they go straight for the agencies rather than just saying we're going straight for you. I would assume that's going to happen, but as you say, we're yet to know. They don't have to. As the legislation is drafted, they can go after both at the same time, but to establish the debt first, they must have to sort of go to the umbrella and say, we think you've got this wrong.
Seb, it'd be good to bring you in here. I know you had a lot of conversations with HMRC and the consultation and the build-up to this. What's your thoughts on the enforcement, which is ultimately bring this legislation, they have to enforce it?
Yeah, I think that I agree with what has been said. I think there is two sides to it. I think this is what HMRC intended and what they communicated and what they're actually going to do. What they communicated in their webinar, this is where I'm going to agree with both Paul and Julian, is what they said in webinar and what they communicated is, what is joint and several liabilities, they've been very clear that it will be not one or the other, but more one than the other. And in the way that if the umbrella company doesn't pay HMRC, they said that they will go to the recruitment agency first. And that this is, I think, what they intended, that they've been pretty clear about that. After, in practice, and this is where I'm going to agree with Julian, not too sure exactly about what method they are going to do to basically straight away trigger what they say Regulation 80 determination directly to the recruitment agency. And I feel that they're going to go to the umbrella company first. But as Julian said, I think that this is a new legislation that's never been enforced. And we're just going to see in the future exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, there is a joint and several liability, Chris, in VAT. So there is some precedent for how they go about it, and what they do there, they go after the offender first. But if they think there was no reasonable prospect of getting the money from them, then they move on. So they issue notices along the way. So maybe that's the way they'll go. But I think we just have to wait and see what the guidance says they're going to do.
Yeah, excellent. Seb, next question I'd like to direct towards you. So under the JSL, it's all about what you can prove, not what you believe. So what does realistic weekly or monthly evidence of due diligence actually look like for an agency using multiple umbrella companies?
Well, in terms of due diligence, I think that, and especially in terms of umbrella compliance, I think it's important that it's never one thing that's being done that solves the problem, but everything that's being done that solves the problem. And this is where, again, I agree with what just Paul said. Firstly, there is a misunderstanding, and I think that there is like maybe 6 or 7 years of history where recruitment agency believes that due diligence is enough. And from April 2026, well, it's not enough anymore, at least not for joint and several liability. And I think that there is already some foundation for recruitment agencies that was taking umbrella compliance seriously, where they were doing background check on the umbrella company, understanding the company structure, the company ownership, checking the contracts, the processes, the policies. And that's great. But like since 2014, umbrella compliance have been about taxes. And in April 2026, recruitment agencies that work with umbrella company need to understand not only that the taxes have been paid, they need to understand that the payroll has been operated properly by the umbrella company. Like, for example, expenses has been treated properly and there is receipt, and if it's paid tax-free. That the payroll software being used work well, because sometimes there is issue with payroll software and taxes are badly calculated, because everyone talk about regulation for umbrella company, but payroll software are not regulated either. Making sure that the taxes are actually calculated then on the payslip, disclosed to HMRC, and then obviously paid. So really the paid element is one. And for recruitment agency to be fully protected, they need to have this vision that cover the legal compliance and all the process of tax and the guarantees that taxes have been paid. And this is where everything is changing, is recruitment agency need to look for proof that taxes are paid, because if taxes are not paid, as Paul said, there is no statutory defense, and the tax liability is going to effectively sit potentially with the recruitment agency, the MSP, or the end client.
And obviously you've got, from SafeRec's point of view, you give all the members, any agencies that work with them, the monthly report, which gives some detail around that as well. So that'll help evidence that if there ever is an investigation, yeah?
Yes, we really have two sides on SafeRec. So we have one side where recruitment agency can log in and see the payslip being audited in real time. And at the end of the month, when we meet with the umbrella company and evidence that the HMRC tax accounts, they have the right amount of tax and the taxes have been paid, we send the monthly payments. So we kind of, the SafeRec certification basically do this job for them. And that also includes the legal compliance with the due diligence report that they can download for free on the SafeRec platform.
Excellent.
Chris, could I just make an extra point at this stage? It's become clear to me over the last 3 or 4 weeks where clients have end user clients have contacted us. They are much more interested now than they have ever been in supply chain due diligence, because they're aware that they may be on the hook. And interestingly, I reached a conclusion with a client the other day, which is that the safest approach for a client may well be to have a very elongated supply chain rather than a shorter supply chain, where there could be, for example, a neutral vendor or an MSP and also an umbrella involved. That's probably the best way that they can insulate themselves from any liability. So, the point I wanted to make without going into too much detail on that was clients are much more aware now that they need to do some due diligence on that supply chain. Yeah,
I mentioned this. I spoke at a team event last week, actually, Simon, in Edinburgh, and I said that in 2026, there's two massive pieces of legislation coming in. There's the JSL legislation and there's the Employment Rights Act. Agencies that are on the front foot with compliance in 2026 are going to win business, because if you're going in and speaking to compliance directors, finance directors, legal directors and talking about these changes, and how you can guarantee that supply chain due diligence, you'll win business. The agencies that are hiding and hoping this won't happen and nobody will speak to them about it, they're the ones that are going to get caught out. So I totally agree with you. I think compliance is key this year. So talking about Simon there, I know you're desperate to come in there, I can see you, and I'll bring you and Steve in with this question here. So you guys, Simon, you represent a team which has got over 500 agencies as part of your members. Steve, you've got hundreds of clients that you work with. So what do you think your agencies are worried about at the moment, and what are they not worried about?
Simon, do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. So, as I say, we do a lot of the support as part of what we provide. As has been mentioned, though, good due diligence doesn't absolve you from risk. So, yeah, we've always only allowed umbrellas that are accredited. That since we started in the business, so those more risky umbrellas wouldn't be in our supply chain currently anyway. But what we are going to be doing is supporting them more with the ongoing checks in conjunction with businesses like SEBS to ensure that all the umbrellas that are in our supply chain for our agencies are audited, comfortable that all the tax and NICs are paid, but also looking at the financial stability of those umbrella companies, because even with as we've said, all the checks you can do, non-payment, it might be the most compliant umbrella in the world, but if they don't pay the tax for whatever reason or going out of business, that will still sit with the umbrellas. So there is concern, but we're looking to try and mitigate that as much as possible as part of the service we provide. So yeah, not quite as fearful as some sectors, some parts of the sector, I suppose.
Excellent.
Going on from what you just said, and I think you indicated an opportunity there. I think there is an opportunity here for the recruiters that get on the front foot, understand and showcase to their clients and potential clients what the changes are, and really sell a story for compliance in the recruitment space. There's definitely opportunity to win more business and build more relationships with credible businesses that really think about compliance and risk as an important part of their recruitment and the supply chain. I think, painfully, this is the recruitment world is doing four things. They're doing nothing, which Seb were referred to earlier. Two, they are reviewing their supply chains, and we have advised certainly our members to significantly look and make sure that their umbrellas are either with SEB or the FCSA at least, and they're fully compliant. And we've been working with SEB and FCSA to showcase all the good people that they've got on board with them. Some are bringing payroll in house, which is a bit risk averse, but they're happy to do that. And I think some bigger businesses are doing that as well. Paul may be able to add to that. And some rather nervously are winding down the little bit of contract and temp that they do with some of those smaller agencies, saying, I'm just going to do perm. It scares me, which I think is a mistake. I really do. I think there's so much opportunity in contract and temp, and that's where people are moving. The ERB is, which is an act now. Is it the ERA, Paul? Have I used the wrong terminology? Yeah. There's lots of opportunity for contract and temp business now, and working with the right partners can really escalate and increase the value of the business. So I would encourage our members and other people in the recruitment space to step forward, get educated, and start taking advantage.
Yeah, I think that's the key to it, Simon, is getting educated and educating your clients, because it's easy to hear all this noise and say, right, I don't want anything to do with it.
Yeah.
But if they do get on the front foot with it, it is quite an easy legislation to navigate, as long as you're doing things correctly. Yeah.
I think Paul mentioned his client is becoming aware of this, but if it's Paul's client, then I'm not surprised he's aware of it. But I think lots of SME clients, potential clients, are not aware of what's happening with HMRC and Joint and Several. They are focused on a couple of elements of the ERA, but not what's coming down the line for for recruitment businesses and joint and several with umbrellas. They're just not aware of it. If you look at them, the bigger, 80% of the UK industry is in that SME space. They're not aware. They haven't got access to the advice from Paul. And
if I can jump in here as well, I totally agree with what Simon just said in terms of opportunity. And this is really something that we say something that we say as well. And it is how the HMRC defined umbrella company in joint and several liability. And the way it's been defined is also include, at least this is how every single MSP understand it, and some large end clients, it also include recruitment agencies that engage a worker in a contract of employment. And the consequence of that is that if you're an MSP or if you're an end client, you need to understand how the PAYE worker in your supply chain are being engaged and through what type of contract. And therefore, it's really forcing all MSP and end clients to have more control. And more control mean sometimes reducing the PSL, not the PSL of umbrella company necessarily, but the PSL of recruitment agencies that they are working with. It's not all the MSP or all the end clients, but this is what they see. So I do agree with Simon, because recruitment agencies that are prepared for it, they will be able to pitch to the MSP, to their client, whether it's an end client or an MSP, that they are ready for April 2026, and they should stay into the PSL of their clients.
Can I just add another thing, Chris? If I was a recruitment business and I'd got some umbrellas underneath me and my clients are worried, I would say, you've got nothing to worry about, because we are the relevant person, i.e. the agency, for this legislation. So the liability is not going up to you. So as long as there's an umbrella at the bottom and a recruitment agency in the middle, the recruitment agency is the next point of call after the umbrella, and it doesn't get to the client. If there's no umbrella at the bottom, it can go up to the client. Or if the umbrella company goes direct to the client, it can go up to the client. But if you've got the 1, 2, 3, so you've got client, recruitment business, umbrella, the way the legislation is drafted at the moment, you've got section 61, then the client has some protection where there's a recruitment agency in the middle. So I guess a sales pitch for recruitment businesses should say, well, you don't need to worry about this. It's my problem. What's going on underneath? So don't worry. And that's how it works.
Yeah. And we're finding that more and more now, that agencies, clients are now being aware of this legislation. They're pushing back on agencies and saying we don't want any liability. So we're finding a lot of agencies transferring PAYE contractors over to umbrella for that reason, just to mitigate the risk. So yeah, excellent. So we'll move on to the next one. We've mentioned mini umbrellas at the start, and we're still seeing some agencies using mini umbrella models in the supply chain. After April, an agency knowingly continues to use the mini umbrella model. How do you expect JSL to play out for them in terms of tax exposure, penalties, and their ability to argue they didn't know? I'll start with you on that one, Julian.
I think, obviously, the mini umbrellas are at HMRC sites. They've issued spotlights about schemes, mini umbrellas. They don't like them. They're going to go after them. And I think this will probably be one of the first things that agencies find goes wrong for them, where they've got mini umbrellas in the supply chain. They'll go, well, HMRC said we haven't had the right amount of tax. And by the way, you guys, we can get you under this JSL. It's easy for them. So I think if I had a sort of plan as an agency, I'd get rid of that bit first. I'd make sure I clean up that bit if there's any underneath before I did anything else.
Am I right in saying, Julian, that they can bring in the Criminal Finances Act into this, and any, not just agency owners and directors, but anyone who is senior management or knows about they're using mini umbrella, there could be custodial sentence?
Well, there's lots of legislation about promoters of schemes and whether you actually know about them and things. So these problems have been around for a while. I've not seen a lot of enforcement by HMRC against agencies or anything. If Paul's seen, he can talk after this, but I've not seen them go after. Technically, they could, but this is a lot easier for them just to say, right, give us the tax, and they just issue a notice. So in terms of the process and proving the debt, this might be the easiest way for them to go after agencies if they're involved in many umbrellas.
Yeah.
Can I just
all of that.
Can I just ask a question for some of the people on the call may not understand the definition of a mini umbrella. So it'd be good for Julian, Seb, Paul to just give an overview of that, because people may not know the difference. That I think is key.
I'm happy to take this one. So mini umbrella company is very simple. In every single country, probably in Europe, you got some facility for small businesses to basically grow. And in the UK, you got two of them. You got the employment allowance and you got the VAT flat rate scheme. The employment allowance is simple, is to say, well, because you're a small business, on the first 10,000 of employer NIs that you have to pay, but you won't pay. And the second is the VAT flat rate scheme. And the VAT flat rate scheme say, well, because you're a small business, you're going to charge 20% VAT, but you're not going to give 20% to the government. You give 15, 10, depending on the industry. So that is basically what is happening. And what they do, instead to have one large umbrella companies that do not have access to that, but they create a lot of mini umbrella companies that they create and dissolve after to keep benefiting from the employment allowance and the VAT flat rate scheme. So that, in a nutshell, is what mini umbrella company is. In terms of, to answer the question that you asked, Chris, for the agency to argue we didn't know. So I think that everyone has been clear that that does not work. I don't think it ever worked, but it definitely doesn't work from April 2026. And the liability is obviously this employment allowance, because employer NI is never paid on basically for these workers, and therefore under joint and several liability. So I think it's only PAYE, but I know that they're going to include employee and employer NI as well in terms of liability. But that fundamentally is going to be what the recruitment agency is feeling, which in some cases is one of the benefits. I don't know if it's the right word, but one of the things that the recruitment agency gets for using mini umbrella company is obviously a lot of money from the umbrella company, and most of the time is the employer NI that is not paid to HMRC. So the consequence of that being built up year after year, because in terms of PAYE on IC, the HMRC can go back 4 years. Or if you have any recruitment agencies that keep using mini umbrella company from April 2026, in 2030, they might have a surprise and maybe receive the Regulation 80 determination asking for X amount of money. And just one more thing that maybe we didn't cover, which is very important for recruitment agency to know, is to understand how Regulation 80 determination works. When you get a Regulation 80 determination, the recruitment agency got 30 days to appeal it. If they don't appeal it, it becomes a debt for the recruitment agencies that HMRC can enforce. So there is a lot of consequences. And again, the recruitment agencies that are going to thrive in 2026, I believe, are really the ones that are prepared and understand the umbrella companies they are working with.
Excellent. I think sometimes the problem with the companies that are using mini umbrella is that they built it into their model, they built it into their charge rate. They're not telling the end clients that they're not paying employers NI. The end client knows nothing about it. So now it comes to April and they're saying, no, we have to move to a compliant model. Where did they get that extra money from? So what we're finding is some are going to move, and some are going to move to the vanilla compliant model. Some aren't. Some can't afford to do it. So some are just going to take the chance on it. So they're the ones that we're hoping that HMRC crack down on and make an example of. Paul, could bring you in there. Anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I'd agree entirely with everything that Julian and Seb have said. I've for years told people to steer clear of mini umbrellas. The risk factor, for the reasons Julian's outlined, is significantly increased as from April. I think there's always been a risk with mini umbrellas in any event, just because of their transient nature. But if you've got a lot of mini umbrellas that then disappear off the face of the earth, you're more likely to have an HMRC debt. And as Julian said, from April, that becomes yours. So steer clear of them as soon as possible. And if you don't, then you've only got yourselves to blame come April.
Yeah, totally agree.
One obvious thing here is, if you think about it, there will be agencies moving workers away from them. So it's going to be harder for them to actually make any money, and less likely that they'll be able to pay the taxes. So they'll get squeezed as all the economies of scale will go. They'll get squeezed and squeezed and squeezed. And then even if they intended to pay the taxes, they'll probably start dipping into the tax monies to keep the business going. And that's when you'll get a problem, because they're so small now and so living off the tax money, basically. So that's a problem in itself.
And if you don't know that your umbrella company is using the mini umbrella model, which Seb said is highly unlikely that you would know, but the one of the key things to notice is a contractor's payslip. The name of the limited company will change every sort of maybe 2 or 3 months. It'll be Joe Blogs Limited, then it'll be Jimmy Blogs Limited and Steve Jones Limited. It'll change every few months. Sorry, Steve, you're not involved with anything to do with mini umbrella.
Yeah,
I might need a lawyer soon.
I'll send you my details, Steve. If you're using an FCA accredited umbrella, of course, then you ought to know as a consequence of that mini umbrellas aren't being used. So the FCSA accreditation gives you some comfort around all of that.
And also SafeRec as well, Paul, just to keep us all.
Sorry, Seb. Yeah,
I don't worry at all. I think it's important as well to understand the mini umbrella model as well, how it works. And while the name of the employer on the payslip is changing, the recruitment agency deal with what we call internally a parent MUC, a parent mini umbrella company. So the recruitment agency doesn't always pay a different company. They basically pay the same company. And then basically money is basically used through mini umbrella company. Now the risks that you have, and this is where I politely disagree with Paul. I never want to disagree with a lawyer, but on this case I do. Is just like the model of classic accreditation basically just reviews the potentially the parent MUGs that operate a compliant model on one side and obviously can offset like something on the other side. So really the only way again to check and to verify mini umbrella company is by auditing the tax. And if you audit that the tax is actually calculated and paid to HMRC, well, this is where you're comfortable that there is no mini umbrella company and that employer NI and VAT have been paid.
Yeah. Good. We'll spend a bit longer on that one than we were supposed to, but I think that's an important one. That if anyone is using a mini umbrella company and they have sort of took the chance on it, they have to move now, because it's not just it's business ending if they don't, and as we've said, potentially could be custodial sentences. So yeah, move on from that one. Julian, are contractual indemnities enough under JSL? So what I've found is a lot of clients are saying, what we'll do is we'll just write it into our contract with the umbrella company that you guys have all the liability, and that'll be enough to get us out of JSL. So what's your thoughts on that? Oh, Julian's froze.
Do you want me to jump in?
You want to save the day, Paul?
Yeah, that's fine. So you can't transfer the liability, and that's not what a contractual indemnity does. A contractual indemnity says if there is liability, then you'll cough, but the liability doesn't move. And if you think about it practically, is a contractual indemnity worth the paper it's written on? I mean, if the problem in the first place is that the umbrella's not accounted properly for tax, will it have enough money, or will it be inclined to write you a check? Well, the short answer is no, of course it won't. So, lawyers will always say, with a view to trying to put you in the best position, yes, get whatever indemnities you can get. You won't like what I'm about to say, Chris, but I have had some agencies who said to me they might try and get the directors of the umbrella on the hook with some personal guarantees. Needless to say, most umbrella directors are saying, sorry guys, on your bike, and I fully understand entirely why they would say that. But that's the level of concern that's being expressed by some agencies here. And obviously, if you can get those, that's fabulous. But a general contractual indemnity, I say, is not really worth the paper it's written on.
Yeah, I totally agree on that one.
just to echo on what Paul said, because this time I agree with Paul.
Thanks, Seb.
Is also important to appreciate the fact that, as we've said it earlier, in the legislation, recruitment agency are potentially umbrella company as to way is drafted, and therefore, if the recruitment agency expects their umbrella company to sign this type of indemnity, they should also expect to sign the same indemnity for their MSP or for their client, if you see what I mean. So I just believe that when you really look at the funnel of money in the temporary labor market, you really have every single party that all together maybe make, 10, 15% margin, and the rest is actually paid to the worker and taxes. So in terms of indemnity, there is really no one that make enough money or that enough money in the bank account to pay any taxes that is not paid. So I know that some recruitment agency maybe just want to get them signed and okay, that's sorted. But as Paul said, I really don't think it's going to make a difference or protect the recruitment agency in any capacity.
Sorry, Chris, I dropped out there. The signal went, so I missed all that. But
the more sense you've made the whole way along.
I think better to have contractual indemnities than not, because if there is some cash left in the umbrella, you can go after it. So I wouldn't say don't have it. I'd say have it, but don't rely on it, because if they haven't paid their tax, it's probably because they haven't got any money, and so it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, isn't it?
I suppose the next question sort of ties into this one, Seb. I'll put this one towards you. Some agencies are asking whether they can simply insure away the JSL risk. From your perspective, how far can insurance really go here?
Well, firstly, in terms of insurance, you need to insure against something. I don't think that there is any insurers that are going to say, okay, give us some piece of money and you're going to have like all tax liabilities that is not paid. There is some insurance products that is coming in. There is one that is linked to self-reg that came up called Orbio, where effectively there is an insurance, a tax liability insurance, meaning that the recruitment agency is protected when they use self-reg certified umbrella company. In terms of how far it's going to go, well, it can really go all the way, very similar to what you can have with IS35. Obviously, it depends the policy wording, and I think that is very important for every single recruitment agency or MSP or end client to really understand. But the way that insurance are going to be drafted, I 100% believe that's going to solve the problems that recruitment agency have and reassure them to engage serenely with umbrella companies without any problem.
Yeah, gives them that peace of mind. Yeah.
I think with insurance, though, what we have to remember is if it does get claimed on more than a couple of times, the insurers will back out of the market and it won't be around for long. I mean, they're not going to stay in a market where they're paying out. So I'm always very skeptical about insurance policies like this. So even if you can get one to work initially, I don't see it having any longevity. But anyway, we'll see.
I mean, I think that it depends really what the insurance is doing. If you have an insurance that basically is badly worded, or an insurance that doesn't insure against something, I 100% agree with you. But when you insure like a compliance process or a tool or an edited process, you have I think there is a lot more serenity from the insurance point of view, and therefore making something one is affordable and likely to be pretty permanent into the time, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, I guess if you insure a process, so it says, have you got your processes right? So you've checked, Seb, and your thing, and your calculations are right. So it's insured if your calculations prove to be wrong. But if your calculations are right and the umbrella's gone bust because an agency hasn't paid it or the director's done one with the money, it's very unlikely that the policy is going to pay out in that situation.
Yeah, I'm happy to just get in touch with the broker for them to send you the policy wording. But what is happening is my understanding is just like when the audit is completed, the report that's being sent every single month is insured. And what's happening after that, including insolvency, is also covered in it.
That's interesting.
Excellent. Good, guys. Julian, this one's to you. We're already seeing agencies report clients want zero tax exposure in the supply chain after April. What should agencies be doing now to reassure those clients that they won't be left holding any tax liability, and how can agencies use this to their advantage?
Well, I mean, agencies should give the clients indemnities because agencies are going to be on the hook anyway in this situation. So HMRC is going to go after them. So the fact that you give your client a tax indemnity, which is going to fall on you anyway, I wouldn't be worried about giving that particularly. And you can also, I think we touched on it earlier, say, look, in the chain we've got with umbrella, agency, and you, the way the legislation's drafted, you're not liable anyway because you're not a relevant person under the legislation. So that's what I would be doing if I was an agency, say, don't worry about it, we've got it all in hand.
Okay. Any thoughts on that, Paul?
Yeah, I mean, I'd just touch on the point I made a little bit earlier, which is I agree entirely with Julian's assessment of the risk. You could, if you were a client, suggest the use of a neutral vendor or an MSP, which again just insulates you one further layer of insulation. But you know, as a client, you might take the view that's not necessary. Certainly, if you're not using a large number of agencies, it's probably overkill. But it is another thing to think about if you're a well-educated client in this arena.
Yeah. Right. Excellent. Next one is a lot of agencies in the room pay workers directly via agency PAYE and feel that means they're safe from the new rules because they're not paying workers through umbrella companies. What will their liabilities be come April? I think we just touched on that there, so that's sort of crossed over. We'll leave that one. We'll get a couple more questions. Seb, this one's to you. Some out there are saying that agencies should be paying HMRC directly rather than leaving it up to the umbrella companies to pay the tax liabilities. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, coming from a background where I used to work in a recruitment agency in a senior position, I can't really see why agency would take the admin to do it without using an umbrella company. I just don't really see it. I think that just to go back to the question before, which was like, how can we have like zero exposure? There is a lot of things. There is some recruitment agencies that can work with bigger umbrella companies that got a bigger balance sheet and they're going to find comfort in that. There is a smaller umbrella companies that started paying the liability every single week and provide evidence to their clients and don't wait the end of the following months to pay taxes to HMRC. So I just believe that it's a little bit of a red herring, and again, some things that is only focusing on paying the liability. But again, the reality of joint and several liability is that the liability is about how the umbrella company operated the payroll, the actual payroll software, the payroll calculation, the remittance of the RTI to HMRC, and the paying the liability at the end. So in the 5-step process, the paying the liability directly is the last bit of it. And most of the time, if they pay the liability, the next question is, okay, what else have they done on everything else that bring liability to them? So I just believe that this is something that's probably came up from following the initial option 3, where HMRC kind of like wanted for the recruitment agency to account for PAYE. But from our perspective, we work with thousands of recruitment agencies and there is really no traction into that. There is really not a lot of recruitment agencies that even discuss these options. They're very comfortable with the umbrella company that they're working with.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Paul, I want to bring in this question you had at the start about the 2 payrolls.
Yeah.
So where would the 2 payrolls come into play if an agency takes the payroll in-house?
Well, it's linked to something I just wanted to say in response to the original question, which is I agree with Seb completely in terms of admin burden. It's if you make the payments yourselves and do the calculations yourselves, that's a lot of work that's involved. The quid pro quo, of course, is that you continue to use a worker that has a contractual relationship with a third party, i.e. an umbrella. So you're insulated from liability from employment claims, for example, for most employment claims as a result of using the umbrella. So the umbrella will always serve a purpose, even if the agency decided to remit the tax and the NICs directly itself. So I don't think doing this is going to be the end of umbrellas as we know it. But yeah, the TUPE point, I think, is actually a big point that's gone slightly under the radar. So if you are an agency and you decide that you don't want to use an umbrella anymore, for example, or you decide to shorten your PSL, bear in mind most umbrella workers are employed on contracts of employment. So what you would be facing is what we call in the trade a service provision change. So you, instead of using an umbrella, for example, and bringing it in-house, you're changing the provider of the service. You're ditching the umbrella, and the service is then being effectively provided by yourselves. So that will be a TUPE transfer, and what you then end up with is inheriting all of those employees who you previously who were previously being supplied by the umbrella on the same terms and conditions that they're currently employed by the umbrella, you also inherit them with all of their continuous service intact. That's what TUPE does, and I think it's a bit that people have missed. They think, well, if we do it, we're mitigating the risk or reducing the risk under these joint and several provisions, but you are indeed inheriting a particularly significant liability. It's the same if you shorten your PSL. So say you go from 10 umbrellas down to 5, but you keep the same workers. Those workers will then move from one umbrella to another, and that will be a service provision change for TUPE purposes. That's not a problem for the agency. The agency can wash its hands of that problem. That's a problem as between the two umbrellas who are involved, but nonetheless, it's still an issue. So TUPE, I think, has reared its head for the first time. And I think it is an additional question or problem that needs to be considered in the context of a solution to this problem.
Yeah, it's interesting, Paul. We'll finish off from my questions. There's quite a lot of questions from the viewers, and we'll go into that after this. But many smaller agencies feel they don't have time or resources to overhaul everything before April. What practical bite-sized steps are you advising your members, clients to take in the next 30 to 60 days? I'll start with you, Steve, on that.
Well, to say we've always sort of helped our agencies in making sure that the suppliers that they're using from an umbrella point of view are accredited and perform due diligence on those agencies, those umbrellas. So, yeah, we're probably not I'm probably not the best source for that because our cohort are slightly protected. I think it will be a challenge, as I said in my first points. The reasons why agencies use businesses like ourselves is it's not their strong point, it's not their area of expertise, and they've probably seen changes in the past that haven't impacted them, so they can become a little bit deaf to the risks. So yeah, I think it's a genuine concern, not one directly to our members, but certainly across the industry. Simon might be better placed because obviously his members might have less support, I suppose.
Yeah, Simon, you want to pick that up?
Yeah. Some stuff's come out the woodwork with some of our members recently because I found out they haven't been using our recommended partners like AGPayroll and all of our umbrella partners are either with SafeRec and FCSA, which most of them are, or at least one of those. And I've encouraged the ones that are only just with one to look at sort of being a part of both orgs. So some have been caught out, definitely, with mini umbrellas, and it's worried me. So we've done our best to sort of bang the drum for making sure that you look at your supply chain now. Make sure that these are the people on our list. These are the people with SafeRec and FCSA. Go and have a look and see what really strengthen what you've got. Have discussions with them. Find out the prices. Get references. Talk. The good thing about our membership is we've got a sort of buzzy community of people that refer, and quite a few of our members are switching their supply chain to people that are with SafeRec and FCSA, but also with other members that have said we have brilliant service and support for that way. So yeah, if they haven't got much time, look at the supply chain is the one thing I'd do immediately.
Yeah, no, it's good advice. I think what we'll do, guys, is we'll jump into the questions here. We've got sort of 5-10 minutes left, and I want to get through as many as possible. So, but thanks very much for your answers on there. So the first question I've got here is from, I think they're all anonymous. I've had calls from contractors using other agencies that have asked one key question. Moving into an FCSA SafeRec umbrella company in April shines a spotlight on a lot of people. Will HMRC be seeking retrospective action against contracts that may not have been paid the correct tax NI before 6th of April 2026? I suppose that's a legal question. We could ask you about that, Join.
Well, no, in terms of this legislation, because it doesn't come into force until 2026, so they can't use this legislation retrospectively. If they're in mini umbrellas or schemes, as we've discussed earlier, there are other things they can do, but no, this is going forward from April.
To echo what Julian said, it's also important to understand that this is not the first law that exists that bring tax liability to the recruitment agency. They have tax liability since 2014 under some legislation, like offshore intermediary legislation. It's very important to understand that if they haven't done anything right now, they need to act now and not wait April. The joint and several liability is just like a signal sent by HMRC that is saying we're coming in a nutshell. So I think it's important that recruitment agency, if they're listening and they haven't done anything yet, they just do something like now.
Okay.
I mean, if you can't do everything at once, you do what you can. I mean, you've still got to run your business. I guess you say every new contractor I place is not going to anywhere bad. It's going somewhere good. That's the first thing to do, and make sure. And even if you can't do it all at once, you do it as soon as reasonably possible. But, I guess that's what I would say. Just if you have to do it in bits, you do it in bits, but you do what you can, and you've got to keep running your business, haven't you?
Yeah. So that sort of ties into the next question on here, which says, you said it's not just about due diligence. How are you supposed to protect against the liabilities if it's not just through due diligence, payslip audits, etc.? What is the guideline that HMRC will be using to determine if you've carried out all possible ways of determining the umbrella company is doing things correctly? We need a checklist. Do you want to pick that one up, Sid?
Yeah, so to answer this question, this is exactly what we've discussed. There is no checklist to have. This is just adopting processes for recruitment as an agency that where they get evidence that taxes have been accurately calculated, disclosed, and paid to HMRC. They need to go to the bottom of have taxes been paid to HMRC. There is nothing that HMRC is going to go and see a recruitment agency and see what have we done, and you can say tick box, tick box, tick box, and they say, okay, that's fine then. Like you've done what you had to do. It doesn't work like that. The goal is for recruitment agency and the rest of the supply chain, the MSP and the end clients are educating themselves at the moment more than they ever have, and put system of control in place in the supply chain to get to the bottom of have taxes been accurately calculated, disclosed, and paid to HMRC. And this is where, if joint and several liability had happened in 2010, I think it would have been a bit of a disaster for the industry. But in 2026, there is solution that provide recruitment agency with this evidence.
Yeah, I would, Chris, very quickly. I would say the purpose of due diligence is to get comfortable with the risk.
Mm-hmm.
It won't eliminate the risk. The risk will always be there. But the better the due diligence exercise, the more comfortable you as an agency will get with the risk. But you can't eliminate it. All you're doing is mitigating it. It will always be there.
Yeah.
You work with the right people. You have the right contracts in place. You put the indemnities in place. You check the financial viability of the people you work with. You do everything you need to do, and that's all you can do.
Yeah. You don't bury your head in the sand and hope it goes away, because that's not going to work. Yeah. So last question. There are a few on here. Questions that have not been answered. We'll get that. The last question, quite an interesting one. Having reduced suppliers and having undertaken more due diligence, they uncover gaps in a supplier. is there a requirement to notify HMRC of shortfalls of the supplier they will move away from? So if you're using an umbrella company and you find out they're non-compliant, do you have to tell HMRC about it?
I'm not. Julian might know more than me on this. I would say I don't think there's a strict obligation, but of course, if you think you're likely to be in the firing line and come under HMRC scrutiny, the one thing you do have to be with HMRC is completely transparent and open. So one school of thought is if you find out, you might want to let HMRC know, but that's with a view to protecting yourself in a sense, rather than because you're under a strict duty. But I don't think there is. I mean, I'm not a tax expert, but I don't think there is a strict obligation on you to notify.
Do you think, Julian, just on that one, if somebody's been using a mini umbrella company and then come April they move away because they know they've been using a mini umbrella company, they're now going, they've had all the good times, they're now moving away, they're going to do everything fully compliant, do you think HMRC could still come after them retrospectively for what they've been doing previously? I know it's not related to this, but is there other legislations out there that they could get punished on?
Potentially, but I think in some professions, so if you're an accountant, you've got certain obligations to make money laundering notifications. But if you're a recruitment agent, recruitment business, I don't think you do. So it's not the same regime that you live in as lawyers or accountants. So, if you keep quiet, I probably would, just to avoid anything. But I would just draw a line under it and move on, and hope for the 4 years to tick by, and then or 6 years or whatever, depending what the scheme you've been involved with is, and do that. But HMRC wouldn't say no. They'd say thank you if you told them about stuff. But to be honest, they probably know. They just waited to get round to getting these people.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Listen, guys,
sorry, if I can just add something, which I think is very important, is, as we said at the beginning, there is a lot of recruitment agencies that are not represented by the team network or APSCO or the REC. Recruitment agency, if you want to open a recruitment agency, you can't do it like in 1995 with like a phone and a computer and that's it, and you crack on. There is so much complexity in terms of compliance that if there is any recruitment agencies that listen to that is not with the team network or the REC or APSCO, to be in touch with this organization to really understand what is happening in the recruitment world, because 2026 and 2027 is going to be busy in terms of compliance, and is essential that we have a recruitment industry that is really educated about what has happened, what is happening, and what will happen as well.
Excellent. Thank you, guys. Hopefully that's made everyone aware that's watching today. As I said, we done that poll last week when 80% of people didn't even know this legislation was coming. Hopefully that's gave you a bit more awareness that you have to take action now. You realise how serious this could be for you and for your business, and also for your clients as well. So I think your homework for everyone that's watching, there's going to be 3 different areas. So first of all, review who you're working with, look at the supply chain, make sure they're working through an accredited accreditation, whether it's FCSA or SafeRec. Put in place some real ongoing checks, and make sure that if HMRC do come calling, that you can evidence any decisions that you've made. So yeah, thank you very much, and thank you very much to all the panelists. That's been great. You were all in your best behaviour today, so thank you. And if anyone wants to continue the conversation, you'll be able to get me on LinkedIn, Chris Fahey from AGPayroll. I'll send you all an email with a copy of this. And if you've got any questions, then any questions that weren't answered will come out in the white paper. So thank you, guys, and I'll catch up with you all soon.